Wow. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. What a crazy time. What a crazy day. We're going to talk about the breaking news and then the fake breaking news, but still try to get to the bottom of exactly what happened out there in the market today. And it's been violent and wild and fun. And I always say, seatbelts, please. This is a volatile space, but that's where the alpha is. So let's jump in and try break everything down in Tuesday's OCTA. And it was a scramble to get here on time and build the content because it was literally changing minute to minute, but we made it. So let's jump in. And of course, anything I say is not financial advice. Let's start with the breaking news first. First of all, this is funny. The world lit up in an instant. All of a sudden, the SEC approved Bitcoin ETFs, and there was a tweet. I have a copy of it somewhere. I can't remember where I sent it, of a list from Gary Gensler of all the ETFs that were approved. The market didn't react. It didn't go up until minutes later. All of a sudden, the SEC is like, "Oh my God! Hi, I'm a doofus. I don't know how to secure my Twitter account, but I'm in charge of the SEC. And somebody hacked my account. My account was compromised." Now, just imagine putting in a whole bunch of leverage shorts, 100x things. And when this hits the market, the price will tank. The exact stuff that this guy is supposed to prevent. It's the easiest thing in the world to secure your Twitter account or your Gmail account or your Coinbase account. It's a basically hard YubiKey, another version of 2FA, and it's done. That is just shocking, and that's an embarrassment. So we have this world where there's a lot of fake news, true news. Thank you so much, Mr. Hammer, as well. Look at this beautiful little graphic. Thanks to the power of AI, we can now put these great little things together real fast. Anyway, we'll talk about AI later, but let's get back into exactly what's going on, and we'll come back to the SEC, where we are, and the extreme volatility. Bitcoin swung $2,800 in 18 minutes. So if you are leverage long and you know how to time this thing, you can make a ton of money real fast. So somebody behind the scenes did, and we'll be able to check that later when I analyze all of the money made in leverage longs across all the different trading platforms. Anyway, let's talk about the good news first. So even though this crazy stuff did happen, it doesn't change anything, and I'll give you comfort today in today's story as well. Let's talk about crypto first, and we'll drill back into the spot ETF and stuff. But compared to 10 weeks ago to today, the market cap was 1.8 trillion. It might be a little bit slower right now. Active addresses 7 million, up from 5.6 million, and transactions 50 million, up from 40 million. So the whole crypto space is doing very well. The things are getting adopted. It's bustling along, which is awesome. Thank you so much, Silicon Valley Stoic, my neighbor. But let's go and let's talk about last week. I did this and I saw a breakout coming, and the breakout did happen. Bitcoin went from 42 to 47,000, and it parked at 47,000 for quite some time. But let's drill down into exactly what last week looked like. The last 7 days, you can see pretty much Bitcoin bit pretty much everything except for TIA, Lido, and Stacks. Everything else suffered. Some things down hard. Cardano 17%, Avalanche 18%, Solana fell 10%, ETH 8%. So it was ugly out there for everything but Bitcoin. So Bitcoin dominance, actually, pulling it from the slide here, shot up to 52.31%. But again, I don't place too much weight on that particular number. Now we look at the last week in terms of dollar terms, melting ice cube terms. Bitcoin, again, it was up 4.63% up until a few minutes ago. Now, as we're officially looking at it, Bitcoin is just shy of 46K. So basically, it lost $1,000. Who cares? Not too bad. But let's go a little bit deeper. What exactly is going on out there? So first, we have the Bitcoin halving 98 days away. And remember, even if there was no spot ETF, it wouldn't impact things at all. The retail investors who have kept this thing alive for 15 years and all the miners that keep this thing secure will continue to plug along. It will continue to get adopted, as I showed with the adoption numbers here, and it'll continue to grow. So for those of you who are sweating the whole thing, I don't know. again, I'm still here scratching my head. Okay, head of the SEC, his only job is to prevent things like this happening. And is it too early to have a drink? Because this is one of those days where you really scratch your head and want to have a drink. Anyway, 98 days, not far, a little over 3 months. Now, the spot ETF countdown, getting back to the spot ETF, because that will have a huge impact on this whole space. This is from the VanEck CEO. He confirmed that spot Bitcoin ETF approvals will be approved on Wednesday, and they will begin trading on Thursday. Remember, they are one of the biggest crews out there. So that is confirmed, and that was released this morning. I tweeted at Andy and Kamikaze Creations. Thank you for that. So that's where we are. It is happening. Yesterday, I was 95 to 98% sure. Today, 98% sure. VanEck CEO can't go on live TV and say it's coming Thursday. That means he got the nod. Okay? That they're in, good to go. All the paperwork is done and everything else. But there's more. Also, this guy called Anthony Scaramucci announced same thing. Wednesday announcement and trading Thursday. And this is kind of all over the place. So it's coming. The fact that Gary Gensler's account was hacked, again, it's still comical. Oh my God. The guy shouldn't be able to show his face. Let's look at where Bitcoin is in terms of the TABI model, the top and bottom indicator. You can see it did take a dip. This is not a price chart. This is a chart made up of over 20 different on-chain metrics that tells you when Bitcoin is hot or when it's not, when it's a good time to buy, when it's a good time to sell. Now you can see here we took a dip from last week, but we're still yellow, which means full bull. And with the volatility we're seeing right now, it's definitely has earmarks of a bull run with nearly a $3,000 swing in 18 minutes. And I think it was it Monday or Tuesday? Monday, yesterday, we had a $3,000 candle. So it's just up, down. That's what makes it so much fun. Thank you, Cybert. Now let's look at fear and greed. Another bullish indicator. Shot up to 76. That is pretty good. And this chart, although it's live, it's probably a little bit out of date right now, but Bitcoin is up 11% for the year so far. Not bad, considering we're not even 9 full days in. So, not bad. But let's get back to some more stuff. We also had the first ever Bitcoin Golden Cross on the weekly. Now, this is not something that you can take to the bank. Bitcoin has been around for 15 years and it just had its first one. That's when the 200-week moving average is crossed through by the 50-week moving average. And again, here we are. And we're witnessing history because it's the first time it ever happened. But what's really interesting is this event, maybe it's coincidence, but the fact that it's confluent with not only the Bitcoin halving coming up, but also the spot ETF approval. So I think from the n equals 1 sample size of this Golden Cross on the weekly for Bitcoin, it will be a good indicator, but you can't take it to the bank like anything else. Now, other group that are very bullish on Bitcoin, they said, Standard & Chartered, possible $200,000 Bitcoin by 2025. But of course, that's dependent on the spot ETF approval, which we know will be approved as well. And also, a lot of other good stuff happening in March too. You know, we're getting money printing is probably going to happen because the BTFP program is going to end. There'll be rate cuts, a lot of other stuff. Quantitative tightening has to stop, and the Bitcoin halving. So it's going to be a great year. Ignore all this noise and FUD. In addition, these are the people that know where to place the money. This is CME futures and Bitcoin. Is the institutional positioning in the Bitcoin futures is still strong, going by the open interest of the CME Bitcoin futures, and it's currently at an all-time high. That's nearly $6 billion in bets on Bitcoin spot getting approved and it going higher. So for those of you who didn't or don't have Bitcoin, and right now it's under 46K, it's not 42K where we're buying a few days ago, but it's going higher, that's for sure. In addition, another point of view that Bitcoin is going higher, and a shout out to Sanjay for this as well. I believe this could mean a 16x is in sight. Obviously, these are the different market caps. You got your total US equities market cap, 50 trillion. You got your total public debt, 33.2 trillion. That's actually 34 trillion, so the chart's a little bit out of date. It's from Dylan LeClaire, I think. Other good stuff is happening. Gold market cap, 15.2 trillion. And Bitcoin market cap, 900 billion. Extremely small market cap right there. But can that 900 billion grow into the size of the market cap of gold? Absolutely, because it's better, cheaper, faster. It's digital. Okay? If you ever tried carrying around even a little amount of gold in your denim jean pocket, it'll bruise your thigh. That's how heavy this stuff is. Yeah. Anyway, enough of that. I'm going to talk actually about gold, Russia, and China in a minute, and what would happen if they pivoted into Bitcoin. That's an interesting math, but we'll get to that in a minute. Now, in other news that the spot ETF is coming is the wars rage on. I think I covered this in DCA yesterday, but since yesterday, they've actually reduced their fees further. A lot of people now are offering zero fees for the first certain period, like 6 months or whatever. You have iShares, they cut from 0.3 to 0.2. VanEck 0.25, Franklin 0.29, etc. It's so funny. And GBTC, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, is down at 1.5% from 2%. Now, that in itself is an interesting case in point. Why are they not trying to compete? The answer is they have people trapped. Unless you are in a tax-free account holding GBTC, you sell it and move to a cheaper fee base, you're going to incur capital gains tax. And if you bought GBTC in single digits not too long ago, a year ago, there's a lot of tax to pay on that move. Therefore, you can eat the 1.5% fee rather than pay the taxes on the capital gains. And that's probably part of the reason why they believe they can still screw customers and charge 1.5% when the rest of the world is charging 0.29%, 29 basis points. So we'll see what happens. Either way, I do expect there to be a move out of GBTC, and that when I first saw the market volatility, and it was only minutes later I figured out it was the SEC account being hacked, I thought maybe it was Grayscale dumping Bitcoin because of so many redemptions from investors, because they knew it was coming. That could still happen. So again, be ready with those sniping rifles when this time comes. In addition, another indicator is the GBTC discount fell back. It was 8% yesterday. Now it's 5.2% again. So that is an all-time low for the last couple of years. ETH not doing so well, unfortunately. But I think it's getting to the point now where it's definitely worth many people just biting the bullet. Still 5%. Will go to zero when these things are approved. It should happen pretty much instantaneously, but we'll watch it carefully, and that will make that top row of this sheet redundant that I've been using for years. Another one that's actually a very good piece of news, and a shout out to Jamie Coots from Bloomberg, who is a friend of the channel, has been on this channel. He talked about the whole Bitcoin ESG narrative that's incoming, and what's really impressive about that is now for the first time ever, mining Bitcoin can actually reduce the amount of methane, which is a greenhouse gas, in the environment by burning it to power miners. So what's worse, methane or the byproduct of methane, whatever that is, I'm not sure. But anyway, it's a good thing, and you're going to see a lot more of that narrative when BlackRock gets behind, maybe, well, they're already behind Bitcoin, but then they'll start saying, well, we are taking methane out of the environment, so it's actually a good thing, and this is going to be great for the whole space too. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this type of information. Let's go, switching to, well, first of all, I hope we kicked all things Bitcoin to death. We'll monitor it carefully. It's now back up at 45.7, moving. But let's talk about altcoins for a minute, and then some stocks and AI and some macro stuff too. AltSeason index drops to 57, and this is all because of the crazy Bitcoin strength. We knew that was coming, no surprise there. A little bit of Solana ARK news. ARK Invest is now analyzing Solana, and they talked about their excitement around Solana and the fact that transaction fees hit an all-time high of $778,000. Not only due to things like price appreciation, but heavy usage of the chain of 1.25 million daily active users on a couple of days. And that is big for everybody who was always concerned. One of the 75,000 pieces of FUD against Solana was, oh, their fees are too small, they're never going to make it. Well, I always said you can make it up with numbers. It just needs to be adopted. Black hole, best, cheapest, fastest, most secure. Boom. Then you get your fees. Then it's not a problem. Nearly $1 million a day. Another piece of FUD put away. Like we did David Sachs, I think last week, said he never sold his Sol. And everybody's talking about the VCs in Silicon Valley dumping on retail. No, he still holds it. Anyway, thank you, The Great Escape. Let's talk about the stock market. Go to stocks and then touch on some very interesting macro news. You can see the last 7 days, Nvidia up big, 10%. Microsoft up, Meta up, etc. Amazon up 1%. Apple down a bit. Nobody's getting excited about the goggles. I'll talk about those in a minute too. But what was really key yesterday, again, I publish a lot of key market observations on Twitter and, of course, in Patreon. Most of my action is in Patreon, of course, but some fun stuff I do on Twitter. But I spoke about the first 5 days and how critical that was. The first 4 days of this year, we were red. It was horrible. And yesterday, we made a V-shaped recovery. So now, the first 5 days of 2024, we're positive for the S&P 500, which is a good omen. Only 6 times in history have the first 5 days been positive and the year been negative. Only 6 times out of 74 years, which is stunning, and it's an interesting statistic. So you can take that to the bank. So it's going to be a good year this year for many reasons, like some of the ones I touched above too. But that was interesting as well. So I'm glad you made the first 5 days. In addition, in some minor news, talking about Bitcoin proxies, which we love on this channel, CleanSpark is looking to 5x their hash rate. They're investing $193 million in new miners to really be in a position, I spoke about this ad nauseum, bring on new rigs and work at a much better level of operational effectiveness and efficiency. And they're going to do that by making this investment. And yes, they have a shelf offering, which means they will be selling some stock to buy these rigs, but they'll be much better positioned for the future. And again, mining is cutthroat out there. If you don't have the best, leanest, meanest machine, you're not going to win. It's like in any industry. Thank you so much, the T. Now let's compare all the hash and future hash for all the miners that are out there. This is the interesting part. This is from our miner model. You can see here the future hash rate plan was the highest for Riot. One of the reasons I actually bought into Riot, I was impressed with their plans to expand their hash from 12.4 exahash to 38.4 exahash. Mara also have plans. They're going to go from 23 exahash up to 30, maybe even more as well. But for CleanSpark, they're going to go from 10 to 50 exahash, which would make them the biggest on this leaderboard, which is very, very big news. Note as well, they have enough rigs to increase their hash by 6 to 8 exahash. They'll be plugging in the next 6 to 8 weeks, which will also help them mint a lot more Bitcoin. Some days they're minting, I can't remember, they did like 730 Bitcoin, I think, in the month of December, and their highest day was about 30 Bitcoin. That'd be nice. Imagine having a little rig running in your basement and kicking out 30 Bitcoin a day. Oh yeah, that'd be kind of crazy. Anyway, let's talk about a little bit of Tesla news and EV price parity. I know half the world, maybe more than half the world, hates electric vehicles, but Tesla is leading the way down in terms of price. We're about to eclipse the average US price per vehicle. The cheapest average vehicle will be a Tesla, not an EV, and not a nice vehicle, and not a hybrid. It'll be a Tesla. Nobody has as lean and mean, seems to be a topic today, like CleanSpark machine to be able to build and manufacture vehicles and load them with the #1 safety record of any car ever made, and more technology and self-driving capability and safety features and entertainment features and looks and everything else. So that's all happening. In addition, Tesla news is out that they did smoke Incumbents. Tesla's US market share now tops Volkswagen, Subaru and BMW, which is good. And it's only just begun. Apparently about 12% of all cars sold next year in the United States will be battery electric vehicles. And guess what the competition is doing? They're scaling back because they can't make money on them. So it's going to be like a wide open market for Tesla. It's actually embarrassing how far ahead they are. And there's more coming, unfortunately. Thank you so much, KT, over there in Europe. Elon Musk is now coming out with peer-to-peer payments sometime this year. It was already slated for middle of this year, but he mentioned it again, and this is kind of hitting the headlines and getting people excited. But that's yet another industry he's going to disrupt, and yet another industry is going to go after him and try, I don't want to say the term, but, like with all the fake news and everything else. So if you're a bank, be worried. Things are going to change. And Nvidia, as we noticed above, was one of the top performing stocks in the S&P 500 this year. It's smoking it. And this is Nvidia on our ATR model. I haven't shown this in a while, but you can see here, the model is hanging together. It knows when things are still going up and it's not flashing a sell signal, and it's broken out a new layer, a new tier higher. And I still hold a little bit. So we'll see where this thing can go. It's quite incredible how far Nvidia is running, and how there's a better AI company that isn't doing anywhere near as much catch up. Again, markets are truly irrational, but eventually numbers and analysis works. Now, getting back to Bitcoin and El Salvador, because then we're getting into our Russia-China story here. Nayib Bukele is winning with Bitcoin. Who's laughing now? This is the amount of profit he has made on his portfolio. I think it's about, I can't remember the exact number, $23 million of profit or something. Total portfolio is worth $131 million. And well done to Nayib Bukele. A lot of people ridiculed him and mocked him like they did Saylor and others. But again, you can go through storms, but what matters is being right at the end of the day. The results will follow, everybody, and that's key. In addition, this is kind of an interesting little stat here as well. This is the amount of gold stacked by China and Russia over the last couple of years, and their gold reserves and how much they are adding. For example, last month, China and Russia, mostly China, added nearly 12 tons of gold. So I calculated how much gold value there was here, and it's nearly $300 trillion just from these two countries of gold. $300 billion, sorry, not trillion, $300 billion. They own a big stack. Now, imagine if the day comes where they decide to allocate towards Bitcoin. Now, I did do a calculation of what would happen if 300 billion went into Bitcoin from these two countries. The numbers you don't even want to know. Very scary. Very, very, very scary. That's when you get to the Mawson guy who said Bitcoin's going to hit $1 million in 7 weeks. So anyway, it's going to happen. It's game theory. We just need to keep our seatbelts on and not be shaken out as Bitcoin is recovering nearly at 46,000 as we speak. In addition, this is another interesting thing on investments and notes. And you've heard me for a long time talk about how it's very, very important to pick winners and not just have 60 elements of something in a portfolio. It's just, you're not going to be able to tread water. And again, I'll remind everybody, if you're not making 14% on your investments, you're sinking. You're not treading water. You got to make more than 14% per year, because that's how much global fiat is printing and debasing. Okay? Now, if you look at this here, there is an interesting cross intersection. The actively managed mutual funds are now 49% of the 27 trillion that's being invested, and 51% is ETFs and passive mutual funds. That's 14 trillion. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is, if you're in your actively managed funds, they suck. They underperform the index. That's why people are investing in the index. But the index sucks compared to the winners. So when you look at 80% of the return in 2023 came from 7 companies, the Magnificent 7. Why do you want to be in an index? Why not just be in the Magnificent 7? Forget the rest. And that's what's crazy. But the reason I mention this is, guess why? These people got fed up with active managers. Soon the penny will drop in their small little heads that, index funds suck too, I'm not treading water. What are we going to allocate to? Write a comment below. Begins with B, ends with oin. So it's just crazy. Anyway, exciting times for us all. And for those of you who have a big spacious living room, this is cool. And again, shout out to Sanjay for sharing this to me. This is LG's new OLED Hologram TV. And if users want to pull up a moving screensaver, you can have any image. It could be a fireplace, it could be a winter scene, it could be a beach scene, it could be waves, it could be under ocean, whatever you want, fish swimming. You can see through this thing, and it's like a living piece of art in your living room. And then it can also turn into a TV. So it's like it's got 2 layers. I don't quite understand how it works, but that's pretty impressive to lighten up any room and make it look incredible. The days of having these big elaborate fish tanks will be gone. You'll be able to have the fish tank swimming in your TV. Without, of course, real fish. Of course, no fish will be hurt in this. And don't forget, every single slide we ever do gets turned into a Substack. We now have nearly 10,000 subscribers, and a big thank you to the team behind this as well. It's a great way to make sure you don't miss a trick and take you 5 minutes to read a day, but it has all the stuff you need, all the alpha in every single show. Now, time for some bad news. This is the first piece of bad news. You have Bitcoin Nasdaq Correlation. They're beginning to move together again. Nasdaq is up 14% over the last 90 days. Bitcoin up 50%, but begin to parallel off. We like when they deviate from each other, not when they track each other, because we want uncorrelated asset. So all these people here who eventually wake up, it's like index funds aren't for me, and we know that active management funds suck. So we're going to invest in Bitcoin, but they don't want it to mimic Nasdaq, of course. In addition, bad news for our friends out there in Germany and Deutschland. You can see here, German industrial production is taking a dump. And a large part of this is because of disruption in many parts of the world. And sometimes, I don't know the exact reason behind this, but industrial manufacturing is slowing, probably because of energy costs and macroeconomic factors and interest rates and everything else. And this is really bad. And can you imagine how bad this arrow would be if you'd pulled out the Tesla manufacturing that's happening in Giga Berlin? It would be worse, in fact. Let's talk about Apple for a second. A lot of people are very excited. They think it's going to be something, at least a catalyst for the Apple stock. I don't believe so, but it is confirmed to launch their Vision Pro on February 2nd, and the cost is $3,500. When you compare this to the Oculus, which is a company that was acquired by Meta, it's $500. Okay, so there's a very big delta in price between $500 and $3,500. And yes, Meta did sell a lot of those. They had them in retailers like Costco, slinging them cheap. But the decision for a family to buy one of these things, these headache migraine makers, for $3,500, I don't see it happening. I don't see it as a catalyst for the stock. So don't hold your breath on that one. Therefore, the Magnificent 7 is really only the Magnificent 3. More on that later. And stealth liquidity. If you don't believe the money is flowing into the markets, it is. The Fed has already offered banks a cushion to soften the blow that quantitative tightening has dealt with higher interest rates reserves by introducing the BTFP facility, which now has extended nearly $150 billion in loans to embattled banks out there that have that duration risk. $150 billion. This is scheduled to stop, I think, in March. They can't stop it. They pull the plug on this. All the small and medium-sized community banks, regional banks will hit the wall. Like that. Not going to happen. Can't happen. And speaking of liquidity and money, because that's what this channel is about, you can see here the global liquidity did dip a little bit to the tune of about $20 billion over the last week. We monitor this very carefully, and we're moving away from my target of 100 trillion in global liquidity, but hopefully we'll make it there. And now the ugly news, everybody. This is the shut up and take my money news. Let's see who's dumping on retail today. And here we'll start with Aptos. They are very consistent least. Let me see, they'll be dumping another 8.04% on retail over the next 2 days. Cyber, another 8.5%, very similar to the Aptos dumpage. Flow, ApeCoin must be dead by now. I can't believe it's still listed. Axie Infinity, we all know the metaverse is all money grabs and games, but they also are dumping nearly another 3%. Algorand's on the list, and Injective Protocol is on the list too. Injective, interesting one there, 11 days out. They'll be dumping about 4.35%. In full disclosure, I do own Injective, so I need to analyze my position and is it worth holding through the storm. And remember, the time of the unlock doesn't mean that the tokens will hit the market at that exact time. Sometimes it takes days, weeks, months for it to happen, but it's good to be aware of as it does happen. And a big thank you as well. Oh, this is the tweet from Watcher Guru of kind of retweeting that the SEC approves all spot Bitcoin ETFs. Of course, it didn't happen, but it will happen. Just not now. It was just probably a little bit of a premature action. Now the market's figuring out, yeah, it was fake, but the ETF is still coming. So thank you all for joining. Thank you to everyone on Patreon as well. Let me see what the comment is of the day from Paul Friel. Love Patreon. Love you in there too, Paul. And thank you to everybody in the chat as well. I see all the usual team. TNT Tesla, thank you, and K8 and Beardy and all the fun people. Thank you all for coming. Tomorrow will be an interesting day. And we're all tired of talking about the spot ETF. It's coming. The next question will be analyzing the money flows like I do for other funds. That will be interesting. And we'll see exactly when you have 12 of these puppies, these guys, and they have armies of salespeople pumping their product on people to invest to get their money. Those people who are tired of index funds and everything else and gold and everything else, they're going into Bitcoin. So never been more sure about anything else. It's going to be a great year. Seatbelts on. Don't get shaken out. And be careful with leverage, especially with the $2,800 wicks in 18 minutes. That's designed to mess you up. Thank you as well. 6,000 people looking live. New record. Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.